Well, welcome everyone. Today, this is Bobby under the Voltage account with Nate, who has been instrumental in helping me get set up my first routing node. The purpose of this Twitter space is to help others who are not sure how to get started with the Lightning Network. And, beyond making simple payments and running a wallet on your phone, which a lot of people just run custodial wallets where you have to trust third parties. When it comes to running a Lightning node yourself, you're able to make your own payments and not have to rely on these third parties. And for me personally, I had a friend who paid me this last month through Blue Wallet, and the payment got delayed by like 3 days, and everyone was like, what's going on? Like, we were confused, and I didn't know Blue Wallet was a centralized entity, and due to their node having issues, they could not send payments for everyone using their software. So that really frustrated me. The Blue Wallet held up everything I was doing. So I was quick to want to set up my own node and run my own just everything. So we're here, and I'm brand new to this. I'll say first off, to frame this conversation, I am not technical. I took C++ in high school as a junior. I cheated my way through because I was like, screw coding. I'm not a, a developer. And here we are, Bitcoin, 13, 14 years later. And that's the base of Bitcoin. And coding matters. But the thing is when it comes to running a Lightning node, you don't have to actually know code. You don't need to be a developer. You can run a Lightning node yourself. And through working with Voltage and just coming from a sales and marketing background, I really wanted to get into the weeds of understanding how to run a Lightning node. And thanks to guys like Nate, who we're lucky to have at Voltage, he's just taught me the ins and outs incredibly quick of managing a node. And we've even got, it looks like some of the dudes at Amboss here, which is awesome to have because they're Lightning Explorer has just been absolutely incredible, helping me understand my node, pick peers, and just understanding the network. So this is going to be a really fun conversation. The entire intention and purpose is to help other people overcome the barriers to running a node. You do not have to be technical. You do not have to be a developer. So let's dive into this, and let's help some other people overcome the barriers I have this last week.
Yeah. So, how long has it been since you started the routing? Like 2 weeks?
I think we're 6 to 7 days in at most.
Oh, okay. Gosh, it feels longer. Okay. Um, Gosh. Okay. So what's your overall experience so far then? I mean, a week is a pretty short time frame in my opinion. Do you think you're on your way yet, or tell me your thoughts on so far.
Yeah, so just for some background, and this is Bobby with Voltage, for those who just hopped in. Um, I ran an Umbrel for a while, and whenever I got started, I opened a channel to a couple of buddies who were routing, and just simply so I could make payments. That was all I wanted to do. I didn't want to use a mobile phone wallet. I wanted to make payments from my node, and I did that. Ordered some pizzas over Fold, which was just kind of fun to do, and some other little payments to Lightning.store, to order some shirts and stuff, if y'all know Sam, and other things. And after that, I was just kind of done, and I didn't touch my node for a while. And then after starting at Voltage, coming on to a year, being a type of dude who just loves holding my Bitcoin in cold storage, I was like, I need to quit being so cold storage focused. I need to shift to actually using my Bitcoin in an intelligent way that doesn't risk my capital, like we've seen with a lot of these tits up companies, Three Arrows, big one, and then BlockFi, Celsius, all these others are getting bailed out. So my first week going into managing a node, first off, I knew I needed to open some channels to others. I know I needed to get some inbound, and opened a ton of channels where I have remote balance on my side to other peers, and then had a bunch of friends open channels to me. And I didn't see payments routing through me, which was kind of frustrating. But then after the fact, bought some channels through Magma, which Nate kind of handheld me through, which was easy to understand after the first walkthrough. Did some bolts payments, which we'll kind of cover through, making a Lightning payment and then receiving an on-chain payment, which we'll dive into. and also leveraging LN router, which was really cool to see as a tool to help me understand where other nodes are in the network, how they're performing, and TLDR. It's been very informative and helpful to have someone to kind of support me for like 4 to 5 hours. Like it really broke majority of the ice, and it's actually super fun. Just managing a node is a lot like a business. You want to route payments to make some fees, but you also want to sell some channels to make a little back. And if we can do that as a large group, the Lightning Network successful. But it also is just matters as an individual. How do you do that? And that's what I want to make clear for people as someone who loves making money and like providing value. So it's been a great first week, a ton to cover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Bobby, you're a smart guy, but even then, I'm surprised how quick you picked it up. And for me, that just sort of reinforces the idea that I think if anyone wants to do it, they can do it. And you don't need to be some technical super wizard to understand the basic concepts of Lightning and get started. So that's been really, really cool. And for those that don't know, I basically teach this stuff for a living at this point. So if anyone that's using Voltage or has any questions, please let me know on DMs or whatever, and I'll point you in the right direction. Now, with that said, though, Bobby, I got to ask though, is there any like what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had so far with your node? Actually, maybe a better question before we get to that is, what's the current state of your node? Where are we at, and what are we looking to do in the next few days?
Yeah, so we'll go back to I think Wednesday or Thursday last week. What I did immediately was open channels to high quality peers, and what you had instructed me to do, Nate, was to open channels to peers who had a, a rating of 70% or higher, just because these are typically more reliable, higher
Yeah,
quality nodes.
yeah.
Yeah,
So this is the centrality score, right? On terminal lightning dot no terminal dot lightning dot engineering, right?
yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
really focused on opening channels to them, and upon doing that, my expectation was, hey, I'm opening channels to these great people. We'll see some action. And obviously, that doesn't happen because now you can pay outward, right? Like you're opening channels to people, you're not giving capital to their side of the channel. So at this point, I'm now connected to these people and I can flow outward to them. But for me, I'm not looking to make payments over Lightning, I'm not looking to use my Bitcoin privately. I just want to connect to other peers. So at this point, I had 10 to 15 channels open and there wasn't a lot of traction. So what we did after that was two things. One, we jumped immediately to rebalancing channels through the Thunder Hub UI as well as through the Bolts platform, which we did today, which was really cool to see. And
Let's
then,
pause on that real quick.
yeah,
So bolts. So just for those that don't know, there's a method of offloading your outbound uh, capacities on your channels without closing your channels. And these are called submarine swaps, where you pay a service through your channel and then they pay you back on chain minus a small fee. One of the most popular ones is the Loop service that Lightning Labs has, but there's also a service called Bolt, BOLTZ, that is built into Thunder Hub that we utilized a little bit to get some inbound liquidity.
good deal. And yeah, basically this weekend, while I was watching movies with my wife, I was on the Thunder Hub UI and just trying to rebalance a ton. And it's a lot of troubleshooting. And I spent probably 2 to 3 hours, and probably due to my newbie avail, none of it worked. And I stopped, and I haven't routed payments for the last 3 days. What was really interesting though, beforehand, I did have a couple of rebalances go through Thunder Hub, and I think I've routed 30 million sats in my first 3 days. And then after that, it was a complete pause. And that was over the July 4th weekend. So, it was just I wasn't bugging you to like be like, yo, Nate, help me, even though I probably was bugging you, didn't respond. But I routed a lot my first few days. I came back after the weekend, was just really intentional on wanting to trying to get back into routing more. And that's when we leveraged bolts. But it was a good weekend of just like learning what does and does not work and, finding new solutions to balance my channels so I can route payments.
Out of all the options, so like you would agree that probably one of the biggest challenges is acquiring that initial inbound liquidity, right? So and for those that don't know, getting that initial inbound liquidity is a little bit difficult because your node doesn't have the apparent value that other nodes would be willing to just open a channel with you, right? You're not really providing anything to them. So there needs to be other mechanisms to sort of bootstrap that liquidity. And of all the options that we've went through so far, do you think what are some things that can improve, you think, just from a high level perspective right now? Or do you think there's enough options out there for the average person to be able to get inbound at the beginning?
Yeah. So for me, again, my background, because a lot of people have jumped in, I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, I'm a marketing guy. So I love analytics and like secondary dimensions and putting layers of data on top of each other. And I know we don't have these data tools yet in Lightning, but Thunder Hub was very straightforward. It's obviously not command line like what you use, Nate, but it was very helpful to like quickly select and visualize which nodes have remote and which have local balances, and you can attempt to rebalance. What I ran into for those who use Thunder Hub is trying to rebalance those. Often the fee was not set high enough, or I did not have a peer connection, meaning there were not enough peers between the two channels to rebalance and it would fail. And that's where I hit a dead end. And that's where I shifted to using bolts, where I made a lightning payment from my node to bolts. And then they made an on chain payment to me, like Nate mentioned earlier. That's a submarine swap. And that's a little easier way to do it. And that's helped in the short term. But that's been the big challenge, yes, is getting rebalanced channels and inbound capacity so that I could start to see user flows through my channel or through my node. And the big thing I've really come to terms with that I'm going to do over the next probably month is purchase quite a bit of inbound channels just to try to foster a node of like good in and outbound. And then I will reduce, this is my thesis, is reduce my inbound purchasing because I can start to achieve balance through the channels I currently have to then enter, I think, what I perceive as the next phase of node management, which is kind of natural channel management and like balancing without me having to rebalance. And I know this is something you're going to want to explain with like much more detail, but I want it to manage itself, which I know is a possible thing. So I'll kind of pause there.
Well, it gets easier, right? So, all those nodes that we discovered to open up channels with on our initial channel openings and stuff, and we find ones that meet those criteria, and we're like, cool, let's open up a channel, right? We're giving them inbound. They're not paying for it. They're not asking for it, right? We're just giving it to them because we have determined that they are a high quality node that we're willing to open up a channel with, right? And the goal is for you, right, your node to eventually be that node. And you're not that node at the beginning. But eventually, right, your new nodes are going to come on the network. They're going to do a little bit of research and they're going to be like, wow, this X node has looks really, really good. So I'm just going to open up a channel to them. And then on your end, you're like, wow, I just got free inbound liquidity. This is great. So like that will eventually happen when you get your node, really really going. Um, yeah.
Yeah, one of the big things I think I realized over the weekend. So, like, I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I bought all of my channels and just like deployed my Bitcoin into just outbound. And then nothing was flowing. I immediately bought some inbound channels through Magma and through friends. And then I still didn't see things flowing. I was under the impression that, having some inbound would help me, but the centrality piece was really important, because if you're not connected
Ah,
to centralized nodes, from what I can read, is you're not going to get like consistent payment flow through my node. So this is something I would like to kind of talk through more, and even others
yeah,
who feel like confident about talking about this, is the main thing I want to achieve, because I don't want to manage this node forever. I want it to be like natural, flowing, providing value to Lightning, overcoming some of these early stage challenges, is having enough inbound and enough outbound where it naturally manages itself. I'm not too centralized or, too far off the grid, I guess, if you will, but I want it to be kind of right there in the middle where it's like playing a key role among like the big nodes and the little nodes, so micro payments can happen, but also micro or larger payments. So I mean, share a little bit on that and maybe some of the next phases for all
right.
of this.
Yeah, so the concept of centrality is really interesting because it doesn't mean centralized, but I know that's not what you meant. But like the word centralized is kind of like a freaky word. But like a centrality when it comes to the to Lightning is just a node's reach to the wider network. And so a higher centrality means that sort of that specific node is the chances of payments of the network going through your node are increased. To put in a so if you have 100% centrality, that doesn't necessarily mean that every payment in the network is going to go through you. It's just a probability thing. So be trying to like so if you open up say 15 channels or whatever, and then you over time you notice on terminal web or something that your centrality is only like 58, and you want your centrality to be more than that, then there are a few tools like LN Router and stuff that will help you discover nodes on the network that you can open up channels to that will expand that range. And it's important to keep an eye on sort of you want the channels to have a trying to think how to word this in a good way. So you don't want to connect to to just open up channels to the biggest nodes on the network and think that, oh great, I'm wide centrality or whatever. That's not going to work because all the other hundreds of channels that those nodes probably have are also your competition in a way. So you had it right there when you're like, I want to sort of connect to like some of these smaller nodes, and small doesn't mean bad, right? There's high quality small nodes out there that will be happy to route through you if you can find them. So this is more of an intermediate advanced strategy. We're not talking about the initial bootstrap anymore, but yeah, over time we will continually analyze the node to reach those.
Yeah. And this is where, I mean, you helped me jump from I think like beginner to more like intermediate, kind of like you're guiding me through the advanced stuff. But the way I'm viewing it is, I'm not going to just immediately open a channel to async. Like where I see the Lightning Network is lacking right now as far as data and analytics is just like these second and third hops. Like I would be more concerned about being connected to second and third hop nodes to async versus async directly, because I know it's going to eventually hit them and they're going to help make the payment successful. But I want to create less hops and make the payments
Right.
faster and not be at risk of being connected to the number one node. Because if you think about it, I think async today have like 220 something quality peers out of 600, and you don't want to compete with that. One out of 100 is 1%, one out of 225 is like less than like a half a percent or something like that. So there's like a low percentage chance you're going to be the node that it's routed through. So in my mind, like just from a, call it game theory, call it just analytics perspective, is I want to be connected to the nodes on the second and third hops, because those are going to be the ones that typically are going to charge slightly less fees because they are not the biggest nodes potentially, and you might get a little more traction through them for especially potentially micro payments and just more throughput, which from a data and analytics perspective and just reliability, you see more consistency, you get more data under your belt. And I don't know the algorithm that the Lightning Network uses to judge um, channels and all of this, and like how a node performs. This is way beyond what you and I have spoken about, but when I just think about how Google indexes websites from a marketing perspective, I can see like the Lightning Network taking the same approach. There's probably like black and white hat tactics, and you want to just probably make the best decision to create the most throughput on your node. And you don't want to just attack a central node and just say, I'm going to open to async. And that's one thing I noticed when looking at peers in the top 70%. Tons of them were connected to the top 1, 2, and 3 nodes. And maybe you do need to be connected to one of those. I'd be interested to hear your standpoint on that because I haven't asked you about that. But to me, I feel like you don't have to be connected to the top 10 in order to be quality.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's fine. A routing node in my personal opinion is like 25 channels ish. Because I think you can reach a wide part of the network with 20, 25 channels, even less probably, but it's just easier with at least 25. But like there's no problem with having a channel or two to Wallet of Satoshi or async or something just to get that exposure and see how that synergy works with your node. There's no issue there.
Right on. And boss, what's up?
Jesse,
Jesse,
Hey
what's up?
hello.
guys, I thought I'd just jump in here and say hi to all the folks. Just like a bit of context before I join in on what you guys were speaking about is amboss.space is a Lightning Network Explorer, and you'll be able to look up any node on the network with public channels to find out more about them. So in this conversation, we were talking about the centrality of nodes and whom you want to be connected to. And one thing that if I can introduce an analogy here, you can think of like sources of where you would receive a payment, and then you're going to forward it. You can think of that like kind of like the roots of a tree. So those roots for your tree will be where you will be receiving payments. So that's where you want to maintain that inbound capacity. And so those roots, you'll want those to be connected to uh, some nodes with a lot of resources that you can draw from. So you want to get as much coverage of the network as possible for your sources of payments. So those would be the really well connected ones, like async wallet of Satoshi, etc. Bitrefill even. Um, and then you'll be able to deliver those payments to new places in the network. So that would be kind of your smaller nodes that maybe a whole lot of people aren't delivering payments to already. So those would be where you would maintain your outbound capacity in those smaller nodes, and you can provide that service. You can connect the larger network to these smaller nodes.
So you would want to maintain inbound, to put it maybe a little bit simpler, you want to maintain inbound on channels where your peer is more likely to send in that direction, like to spend out of.
Yeah, yeah, it's there's the spend piece, and then there's also the connectivity. So if this node is really well connected, you'll probably want to be able to receive payments from them. Of course, there's a few exceptions like the exchanges, Loop or Bitfinex, etc. Yeah,
Because funds generally flow um, into those nodes, not out of those nodes.
exactly.
So that's really insightful and helpful because if I would be interested to hear from you, Jesse. Like, I didn't see Async and others selling inbound from your platform. So, what is the best way to approach that at this point?
It's like of course you can go on Magma and so that's amboss.space/magma and buy a channel. So kind of offering that peer-to-peer channel selling experience. And we've tried to add a couple of factors people might be concerned about. So one piece is the centrality from Ellen Node Insights, and also the terminal web score. So those factor into the reputation score that you would see on Magma. And the other pieces are, how quickly they respond, because our assumption is that if people are buying liquidity, that means that they need to receive that liquidity quickly. So that if I want to keep my business going, I need to be sure that I'll be able to receive payments and receive them now, not later, not in a couple of weeks. I need my business to continue operating. And so we've kind of rewarded the really responsive peers with a higher reputation on Magma.
I think that's awesome. And it's really cool too, because you will get alerted in your pocket, because the Telegram bot will tell you, hey, someone is buying a channel from you, better get to your node and get it done, right?
Exactly.
Jesse, what I really loved is I bought a channel from someone this weekend, and they set their fee at 500 ppm, and then after it opened, it said, hey, they changed their channel to 5,000 outside of the terms you guys agreed to. They're going to be alerted. And that level of accountability is really cool to see. And I'm really interested to see how just how some of these larger providers are going to be selling inbound. I don't know if they're actively reaching out to you guys at Amboss and they're going to be providing it to some of these new node providers. But as someone who's running a new routing node a weekend, and I have someone like Nate kind of hand holding me, providing this like expert knowledge, I'm really curious, like, what are the things that are being done to try to solve this inbound problem that it seems a lot of nodes need to make the reliability higher, outside of just the simple, the platform and the marketplace you guys have.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of pieces. I know that some of the big players are a little bit more concerned about the compliance stuff. Like early for Kraken, when they started up their node, they were refusing a whole bunch of connections because they weren't really sure, where are these nodes coming from? What if they're in sanctioned countries, et cetera, which is the stuff that, well, at least what I noticed, the bigger players are concerned about. However, we do see participation from like Block Tank, which is part of Synonym and related to Bitfinex in some way, and then also LQWD, which is a publicly traded Lightning company out of Canada. And their whole business model is providing liquidity. So we've seen them participate, as well as all the plebs. And the plebs, I mean, you'd be surprised. I think they're doing a whole lot more volume than the regulated players at this point. So it's very exciting to see that we've got this very flat structure platform that basically anyone can buy and sell liquidity, and they're all kind of intermingling together on Magma.
I think it's really cool how we're talking about this in such as like a normal sort of chill way, because every time I think that, wow, I can earn Bitcoin in just like people will pay me to open up channels, and it's like it's still my Bitcoin and they're still paying me, and it's just incredible. And I really like how on Magma, just to say at the top, it shows like the like average APR people are making by providing that's the service to the rest of the Lightning community, I guess. It's really a big deal.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the I guess more to your question, Bobby, I think a lot of the inbound liquidity issues have to deal with just communication. So saying that you have an active need for liquidity at this moment. And so Magma tackles a piece of that, but not the whole thing. And also, of course, we just need to make the tools easier.
Spoiler alert, not really, but Voltage is building a app that's going to help with that called Surge. Keep an eye out. Voltage.cloud. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is interesting about this phase of the market, and we can move on to some of Nate's other questions, is like you said, Jesse, a lot of the plebs are providing extra or additional liquidity. A lot of them do prefer privacy, you know, and when you have lack of financial compliance currently in the Lightning Network and plebs providing the liquidity, you can't expect, I guess, some of these massive payments to go through. There's all these loops and hurdles, and Bitcoin's typically a little, I just view Bitcoin so differently from ETH. Like I saw ETH in world market today or yesterday, and I was just like, good Lord. And you see it associated with these items. And I feel like it's just something that people, they just like jump through hoops to like use, where Bitcoin, it's so much more, just people are intentional with Bitcoin. That's what I love about Bitcoin, is like, we're not trying to like rush things. We're trying to do it right. And I just see like, I don't know. I just see a much brighter future for Bitcoin compared to all the alts and just everything going on. I just can't fathom it. But that's a whole other conversation. But Nate, what were some of the other things you had lined up we wanted to chat about?
Um, so your node is that we're building this routing node on. This is done totally with voltage, right?
Yeah, and background on that, I'm not here to show voltage. Like, I worked at the company for basically a year now, and I never wanted to set a node up because I'm a cold storage guy. But I ran an Umbrel, I ran Raspberry Blitz. I quickly did not want to learn command line because, like billionaires say, if you're an 8 or a 9 at something, you can easily become a 10. So I'm focused on sales, marketing, content. When it comes to coding, I'm probably a 2 or a 3. Like, if you were here from the beginning, I didn't pay attention in coding class in high school. Lord, I wish I did. But I do not care to become an expert at code. So I wanted to have, number one, a node where I didn't have to run command line. Number two, I didn't have to leverage Umbrel and my crappy Comcast internet. And part three, I wanted to access it anywhere. So for me, and kind of like others with bad internet, like voltage is a natural choice for you. So for me, that was great, and it's been a great solution so far.
Cool. So what would you say to folks that are sort of on the sideline and they've heard about Lightning months or years ago and keep hearing and listening to, folks like you and I talk, but are still on the sidelines? What would you say to any sort of like apprehension or dare I say fear? I don't know, to getting started.
Yeah, a few things. Number one, you can set up your own nodes super easily if you want to do it through Umbrel just to learn, or your own Raspberry Blitz with like a Raspberry Pi. It's really not that challenging. There's a ton of write ups online which you can leverage. Great resources. So it's worth doing that. Part two, while I don't have great internet to rely on those for routing, they're great for just running a node and learning. Part two, if you want to run a routing node, there's certain things you want to do to be reliable to the network and to be accountable to this this just kind of world we want to be a part of, which is high quality lightning reliability. And that's the reason right now I use voltage. And one thing we believe as a company is everyone should run their own node at home. For me, I just have trash internet, so I don't do it. But as soon as I have high quality internet, I will absolutely run a node at home myself. But I'm using voltage for now, and I love the fact that it's affordable, which is great. But I think more importantly is the tools and the things you need to use to be efficient with it. You can definitely learn them. So like Thunderhub, Amboss, there's resources like PlebNet out there, which are truly helpful. That group's gotten kind of big where I dropped some chats in there. And when there's 6,000 people in a Telegram group, it's kind of hard to maybe get the response you want. So I struggled getting any response there. So I think PlebNet's kind of at their growth phase where they could probably improve. And that's a Bobby thing. That's not a voltage thing. Let me just say that.
The PlebNet wiki though is friggin' phenomenal though.
Yeah, the PlebNet wiki is great, and same with the voltage wiki you wrote, Nate. Like the docs page we have is wonderful, but Yeah, chat is really hard because people just live and breathe in there. The wikis online are great. That's a good point. But I think the biggest thing is just going after it yourself. And whenever you introduce a question to the communities, whether it be PlebNet Telegram or the Voltage Discord, be incredibly intentional and specific and cite resources in your question, and you'll get good answers. But I don't see a limitation for people doing this. I think it's incredibly important for all of us who have been stacking Bitcoin, who believe in this technology. Like, if we really want to see it be successful, like Jesse from Amboss said, plebs are routing the most payments. Like, there's a lot of lack of compliance that at Voltage we're working on so that we can provide our infrastructure to massive institutions. It's not there yet. Like, there's not compliance there for these massive institutions. That's the main reason for a lack of adoption. It has absolutely nothing to do with their doubt of Bitcoin. So in my mind, as a capitalist, as an investor, as someone who likes making money, I think it's very important for people who have a like mindset. If you want to run a node, is to provide liquidity, sell channels, try to manage a good node, because like Nate taught me, I can get some, buy some, I can just purchase channels and, create a connection to other nodes, but I need to sell inbound. And when it comes to rebalancing channels, I was paying fees as low as 2, 3, 4, 500 sats. And if you're routing enough payments, you can easily make that back in rebalancing. So I think that's the learning curve people have, because when it comes to our content on Voltage, the number one question people ask is running a Lightning node profitable? And that's the thing we need to break through for people, because we live in a culture where people want side hustles, people want to make extra money. It's just the state of America. So if that can be made clear, and if we can help others understand that, I think that's a big value proposition for what people say in Bitcoin, like quote unquote normies doing it. Like, helping other people break through that barrier is incredibly important.
Well said, man.
Yeah, and again, this is Bobby, not Voltage, speaking. I don't want there to be any confusion,
Right.
because this is Bobby as a newbie, but I really believe that. I understand people who are in the position of wanting to allocate capital and make money, and also hold their Bitcoin in a multi-sig smart contract, and that's what Lightning channels are, from everything I've
What
learned the last 3 years.
what do you I'm going to answer this question too, but what do you think this is going to look like in the next, say, 3 to 5 years, or 10 years time frame? What do you think we're going to be looking at in 2030, I guess? Like,
Yeah.
are we going to see big institutions like Bank of America buying 2 Bitcoin-sized channels from you? What are we going to see?
Yeah, and you brought this up to me before, so I'll just kind of make it clear this is you and other people's thoughts, not mine. But these well-established nodes with backgrounds and good history, they might be real estate on the Lightning Network that are worth the acquisition. People might want to buy and pay for them because they do have a history and they can charge a larger fee. And if you think about it, micro payments run through great on Lightning. Larger payments, I don't know where they fail, where the line in the sand is. Let's just say $600-700. But these nodes that can make larger payments and charge higher fees, that could be worth paying a premium for. So therefore, larger institutions would either try to run them themselves or acquire those nodes. And one thing I know about small business and just business acquisition is it's much easier to acquire something than to build something from scratch and build a reputation. So companies that cash flow and are productive, they're likely going to take the route most people do, which is acquisition, and to forecast the profitability. So I could see that being a thing. The other thing I see is nodes that do not get bought up. They might be able to provide liquidity to some of these larger institutions that need it immediately. And one thing I've kind of racked my brain on is, imagine there's like a music festival like Coachella or something, and they're like, yo, we're doing for like the weekend, and they buy like 7-day channels, and people charge like a 0.5% or 1% premium. We're going to see more of these like experiential and micro pop-up events where instead of taking credit cards, we're going to take Bitcoin and people are going to pay over Strike. They're going to pay over these other channels and it saves 2% for everyone. So I see that being a thing, but the more important thing right now, while we can all dream about this big grand vision, is there needs to be reliability and more understanding of how to manage and run a node. And I think from everything you've shared with me over the last week, it's much easier than people think and believe. And I think that's where like video content and educational content can really teach people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It really sort of excites me when I think of uh, just institutions in general. Like what it comes down to is, and I've only realized this over the last few months, maybe, but it's like all nodes essentially run the same software, and Lightning nodes, right? Essentially, even different implementations, right? We're still pretty much interoperable, minus a few, edge cases, but we're all running the same protocol for the most part, but the value is different. Um, my node is going to be more valuable than a node that boots up tomorrow. And I think that the range of value between nodes is just going to continue to get wider and wider. Meaning, the earlier you're doing it, I think it'll pay off in the long term. And if Bitcoin's taught me anything, it's low time preference is the name of the game. You plant your seeds now and you reap the rewards in the future. And I think that Lightning is no different. So even though starting a Lightning node now, even if folks only have a few sats to open channels and stuff, I still think it's worth doing even on a small scale to just kind of like learn and grow and establish your place in the network. Even if it's small, it's still valuable in a lot of ways. Do you want to open it up to questions or anything? And I'll let you
Yeah.
respond to that.
Yeah. Let's open it up to questions. We'll pour Marky up in 1 second. And I agree 100%. We're seeing a lot of value for value transfer right now and micro payments and stuff. And that's really the use case right now. Remittances is very long term, I think, for Bitcoin and Lightning. And I think these stable coins coming through Taro and like what Strike's trying to do and all these different things will be something that satisfies that. But long term, it will be settled on the Lightning network, which is much more decentralized than Strike. But I agree. Yeah, I think that Marky, I'm gonna pull you up now, and this is my last sentence. Is when it comes to mining and Bitcoin, I just remember as a child when I was younger, my buddy was like, "Hey, build a computer and start mining," and I was like, "Man, a $500 or $600 computer is expensive." That was a custom computer back in my day, and now I realize, take advantage of new technology. Learn from mistakes. Even if you lose, it's worth the risk. And I believe, deploying some capital to the Lightning network to understand what's going on is absolutely worth it. It's worth the time. But Marky, what's up, man?
So hi, I saw Voltage at BTC Miami 2023. I didn't really understand what you guys were about, but this conversation kind of helps. I just want to ask, what is a minimum viable initial investment into Voltage to get some kind of real estate set up in terms of having a node running, waiting to take orders?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So if you go to voltage.cloud and make an account, it's just a username and password. You get $10 of free credit, and we charge by the hour. So Node is a couple cents an hour, and it starts up in just a few minutes. If you want to DM me, I could show you some resources and stuff. But that's that's the basics of how the Voltage Node works, though.
Okay.
It's real quick.
Also, I invested a little bit with Compass, who I saw at BTC Miami, and I feel like I got rug pulled with them because I bought a mining rig in Russia, and then they shut it down because of OFAC. How do I know that the Bitcoin, let's say I put a quarter Bitcoin as collateral on these systems, how do I know that that Bitcoin won't get hacked and stolen from me?
So there might be a little bit of a misunderstanding. So we're non-custodial. So all the Bitcoin that you deploy on a node that's running on Voltage is yours. You have the seed, you have a password that decrypts your node that we do not store at all. So if you lose that password, it's just like if you lost your password on your node at home. There's a very long, annoying recovery process. So we're definitely non-custodial in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I guess like anyone that wants to come up and ask about voltage or ask about nodes or just kind of hang out, I guess time went by really fast on that. Or if there's any other topics you wanted to talk about, Bobby, like we can get into really crazy topics if you want.
Yeah, I think from a newbie perspective, like you helped me get out, like just outbound setup, inbound. Like this week, I'm focused heavily on rebalancing and getting inbound traffic. The real next phase for me is I want this thing to manage myself. To manage itself. I want it to rebalance itself. I want to be connected to good peers that have inbound and outbound, so I'm not having to pay rebalancing fees. And I know that's where the sweet spot is to increase profitability, but also reliability for the network. Because if you really think about it, um, when it comes to Lightning, if you're having to rebalance all the time, you're creating this human interaction that requires you to take action to make the network more reliable. And sure, we're creating these analytics and just data softwares like Surge, which will help automate some of this and some of these things that like Synonym and other companies are making, which makes this hands off for people. But I think the big thing is being able to set up a channel in the first place without even requiring those is a prerequisite to a great node, in my opinion. It's always great to have data and analytics, but to understand the thought process and just the management behind it, I think is incredibly important when it comes to Bitcoin, because whenever you think about Bitcoin, the biggest things we can do is what? Number one, develop, and number two, educate. And the number one thing we can educate about on the Lightning Network is how to run a node, how to open channels, and how to balance them, and then make it more reliable. So I think that's the most important thing that I think we could really discuss in the final 10 minutes if there are no
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on something really interesting there. And that's, you might have a channel with a peer that you don't see any funds moving, right? You don't see any routing activity or anything for an extended time frame. But someone else on the network might have a channel with that peer and it's doing great, right? So it's interesting how the way your node is connected is going to be your own bottleneck, right? So the question is, how do I discover a way to bridge those gaps? And that's one of the fun parts of running a Lightning routing node at the intermediate level is trying to build bridges where there aren't any, which is challenging because it's a game of incomplete information. You can't know for sure if opening a channel with X will help throughput through channel Y, but you can get some data that might help the probability of that being the case, if that makes sense. So that's part of the game. And a lot of folks are like, gosh, that's a lot of work and stuff. Anything's work if you think of it as work. I hear that a lot. And I just want to say, I think it's a fun hobby, right? And that's the important part about it too, is it's a hobby, but it's also a productive hobby in a lot of ways. And if anyone's looking for a little bit of a fun little hobby, this is definitely one of the most fun ones I think a Bitcoiner can dive into. Um, I try not to think of it as work. I don't think it's work. Um, anyway, so I just want to make those 2 points.
Awesome. Max, what's up, man? Welcome up.
Thank you so much. I just picked up this hobby. I've been running my Bitcoin node for like 2 years, but I just started up um, getting some peers, and I now have my Lightning node as well. And I wanted to ask how to rebalance channels, because I now have to do that because I have some that have more inbound than outbound, and I want to get your tips and tricks on how to do that easily.
Mhm. Yeah, so for the audience, just real quick, so a rebalance is also known as a self-payment. And what you're doing is you're paying yourself out one of your channels and back into one of your channels. So if you have a channel that's really heavy on the outbound side and a channel that's really heavy on the inbound side, you can pay out of your outbound side and into your inbound side and of the second channel, and this will sort of balance it out. Um, and one of the reasons you want to do this is because you may want to increase the outbound liquidity of a channel that's heavy on the inbound, so you can increase the fees on that and make some fees on that because some channels drain from outbound to inbound really quickly, and those are the kind of channels you want to um, increase the fee rate on. Anyway, that's a whole other rabbit hole we could talk about maybe on a different spaces, but.
I
Um,
understand.
but Max, if you're using ThunderHub, they have a rebalance tool in there. It's sort of like Balance of Satoshi's light in a lot of ways. Uh, I don't know if you've used ThunderHub, but
Yes,
on the left side you can click rebalance, and then it'll give you the option. Okay, which node do you want to pay out of, and which node? Or, I'm sorry, which channel do you want to pay out of, and which channel do you want to receive into? And you kind of pick that, and then you sort of fill out some other parameters like what's the max fee you're willing to pay. Because remember, you're sending out, so you're sending that payment to the wider network, which means that you may have to pay routing fees to do that. And and then the other one is how long are you willing to wait? Because it's sort of like probing the network, trying to find a route to accomplish that. And I recommend that you sort of keep note of how much fee that you pay on a rebalance because the channel that is increasing in the outbound, if that drains all the way to the inbound again, you should be earning enough in fees to cover that rebalance. Because if you're not, then you're just wasting sats for that rebalance. So just keep an eye on that, but that's the gist of it, if that makes sense.
that's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Max. Hey, what's up, D++?
Hey,
D.
what's up? What's up?
Am I going to see you tomorrow in Austin?
Oh, are you coming to the ABC meetup?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm going. It's a really good meeting for anyone that's listening. We have like a social meetup every first Thursday, and then we have, of course, BitDevs, which is what, the third Thursday?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, there's a
Cool. Yeah.
new like meetup in town also that they just announced called ABCD or ABDC or something. It's Austin Bitcoin Design Club, and that's going to be meeting twice a month.
Twice a month. Wow.
I think so.
Cool. Yeah, I got invited. Mike Atwood invited me to come by to give a demo on setting up a crowd fund with a voltage hosted BTC Pay server. So that's going to be fun.
Oh, sweet.
Anyway, yeah, you got in here kind of near the end of it, but I've been helping Bobby for like the last week start his own routing node, and we were just sort of like discussing the journey so far.
That's awesome. Well, the journey never ends. Yeah, there's like so much to learn. I want to see your demo tomorrow because I've never actually used BTC Pay server. I haven't really ever had a need to, but I've always sort of wanted to set it up just to have the experience.
Sounds like a good opportunity. Awesome.
Well, great. This has been a fun space. I have a funny comical bit I want to share at the end, but I'm not going to do it just because those enter my mind all the time. We'll save it for BitBlock Boom. We're going to be there, guys. We hope to see you. We have a fun little mixer and event we're going to be announcing in the next week or two. If you're going to be there, stay tuned. We'd love to kind of hang and just interact with you. But we'll be doing these spaces every Wednesday with guests. Coming up over the next week, we have Jared from MASH, who's helping content creators and just web browsers monetize every action on the internet, which is super fascinating. Will be fun to talk about. Our event at BitBlock Boom is sponsored with them. We're partnering together on that. And then every Wednesday we'll be doing this. I think Nate and I probably over the next couple of months will at least be documenting my newbiness to routing. He's helping me learn really fast. So again, the purpose of this was to help people understand you can do this. You don't have to be technical. You do not have to have a coding understanding. With a little hand holding and just support, you can get through it. So please feel free to DM me or Nate and jump into our Discord. It's in our Twitter profile. We're here to support you and help you play a part in the Lightning Network and add value and really take this thing to the next level so that we can support the world in payments. So we're excited for you to run your own node or leverage us, whatever is going to help you learn. We're here for you. So join in on Discord, DM either one of us, and tune in next week. We're really excited to hang with y'all again. So thank you for joining us today.